The screen glowed, casting a sickly blue light across my face. My breath hitched, sharp and sudden, like a punch to the gut. Not just a punch, but the kind that steals your air and leaves you seeing stars in broad daylight. On the screen, our wedding video played. Not on our shared drive, not on a private family link, but on a platform I didn't recognize, a profile name I absolutely did. Hers. The sun glinted off his watch as he adjusted his cuff, his voice smooth, the voice that I'd promised forever. He was narrating not for me now, but for her. Pointing out moments. Our first dance. He talked about the way my hand felt in his, the way I looked up at him, but his words weren't echoing back to me. They were reaching out, across wires and distance, to her. He was using the most sacred visual memory of our commitment to woo someone else. Each frame, each smile, each whispered vow. Twisted. A perversion. A weapon. My world tilted on its axis. The room seemed to swim, the edges blurring, colors bleeding into one another like cheap watercolors in the rain. The air grew thick, suffocating, pressing in on my chest until I thought my ribs might crack. A low hum started in my ears, a white noise that drowned out everything else, leaving only the grotesque beauty of our wedding day playing out on a stranger's screen. Where are you watching from right now, and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already found yourself here before, pulled into these moments, please consider subscribing. It truly helps more than you know. Before that moment, life was solid, predictable, the kind of steady rhythm you don't appreciate until it's shattered. We had built a life like a carefully constructed building, brick by brick, plan by plan. There was comfort in the routine. The shared coffee in the morning, the easy silence of two people who know each other's thoughts, the planning for the future, vacations, maybe kids someday, the slow climb towards retirement. He worked long hours, dedicated, focused. I managed our home, my own small business, the quiet engine that kept our shared world running smoothly. We were a unit, a team, or so I believed. Our wedding day felt like the cornerstone of that building, the moment everything became official, concrete, undeniable. The video wasn't just a recording, it was the captured essence of that certainty, that joy, that promise. It sat in a secure cloud folder, tagged, labeled, a digital time capsule of our beginning. A treasure meant for us, for our future children, for quiet evenings remembering where we started. It was pure, unadulterated happiness, frozen in time. He looked so happy. I looked so happy. The laughter, the tears during the vows, the clumsy cutting of the cake, the blur of dancing friends and family. It was perfect. A perfect lie, it turned out. The inciting incident wasn't finding lipstick on a collar or a strange text message. It was the digital equivalent of watching someone set fire to the Mona Lisa using a lighter made from your wedding ring. A mutual friend, innocently enough, sent me a link. Isn't this weird? The message read. My husband's public professional profile, updated recently, now linked a personal blog. And on that blog, under a thinly veiled pseudonym, were entries that chronicled his recent journey of discovery, his search for true connection. And embedded, not just a link but the actual video file. Our wedding video. With a voiceover. His voiceover. Narrating our day. But framing it as a past life he needed to escape, a beautiful but ultimately suffocating cage he was breaking free from. And the comments. Her comments, swooning over his vulnerability, his courage. It wasn't just the infidelity, it was the desecration, the weaponization of our shared joy. The betrayal was deep, yes, but the way he did it, using that symbol, felt like a deliberate act of cruelty designed to inflict maximum pain. Like he knew exactly how much that video meant to me, how much that day represented, and chose to twist it into a tool for his deceit. The world outside my window kept moving, cars passed, birds sang, the sun went on setting, but my world had stopped, frozen in the nauseating glow of the screen. The immediate aftermath of the discovery was a blur of physical reactions. My hands shook so violently, I had to grip the edge of the desk. A cold sweat plastered my hair to my temples. My stomach churned, a violent knot tightening with every beat of my racing heart. I wanted to scream, to shatter the screen, to run until I collapsed. But I couldn't move. I just stared at his face, the face I had kissed 1,000 times, the face that now felt like a mask hiding something monstrous. I watched the video again, and again, searching for clues I had missed. Was the smile forced? Was his touch on my back cold? Did his eyes betray something even then? Hindsight is a cruel, relentless torturer. It shows you what you didn't see, whispers doubts about what you thought was real. I spent the first few days in a kind of suspended animation. I ate nothing, slept maybe an hour total, my mind a hamster wheel of questions and horrifying realizations. He was traveling for work, a conference. The timing, of course, wasn't a coincidence. It was a planned opportunity, an alibi, a clear path to pursue whatever this was, free from my presence. I knew it instinctively. Every fiber of my being screamed that this wasn't a momentary lapse. It was calculated. I didn't confront him immediately. Part of me, the small, naive part that was rapidly dying, hoped it was a misunderstanding, a twisted prank, anything other than the obvious truth. But the larger part, the part that had just witnessed the defiling of my deepest memories, knew. It was a deliberate act. And confronting him while he was away, on the phone, felt wrong. It felt like giving him control of the narrative, allowing him to formulate lies, to deflect, to gaslight from a safe distance. No, this required face-to-face. It required him to see the wreckage he had created in my eyes. So I waited. And while I waited, I started digging. Quietly, methodically. The pain was a dull ache that never left, but underneath it, something harder began to form. A cold, sharp clarity. I accessed shared accounts, not looking for evidence of infidelity anymore. The video was proof enough, but trying to understand the scale of it, the duration, the resources he was dedicating to this double life. I found digital footprints, messages, travel bookings that didn't align with his stated work schedule. I found gifts purchased, sent to an address in the city where the conference was. It wasn't just a flirtation. It was an investment. An investment he was funding with our money, using our time, and destroying our history. The days he was away stretched into an eternity. The house, usually a sanctuary, felt like a tomb. Every object, every photograph, seemed to mock me with memories of a life that had been built on a lie. I'd walk past our wedding photo on the mantelpiece and feel a wave of nausea. The wedding album, sitting innocently on the coffee table, felt radioactive. It was all tainted. Everything we had built, everything we were, or so I thought, was now filtered through the lens of this grotesque betrayal. Friends called, asked how things were. I mumbled platitudes, pasting on a fragile smile. How do you tell someone your husband is using your wedding video to court another woman? How do you explain that the most beautiful day of your life has been turned into propaganda for his affair? The words felt too ugly, too surreal to even articulate. So, I suffered in silence, the secret a heavy stone in my gut, the cold clarity growing stronger with each passing hour. He finally came home. I remember the sound of his key in the lock, the casual way he called my name. He walked in, suitcase in hand, wearing the same smile he wore in the video, the one he was now using on someone else. He kissed me, a peck on the cheek, a familiar gesture rendered utterly alien by the knowledge I possessed. It felt like the touch of a stranger, a trespasser in my own home. The confrontation was not the explosive, tearful scene I might have once imagined. The raw, immediate shock had passed, replaced by that icy calm. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply held up my laptop, opened to the blog page, our wedding video playing silently, and I watched his face. He froze. The color drained from his face, leaving a pale, sickly mask. His eyes darted from the screen to my face, searching, calculating. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The suitcase clattered to the floor, forgotten. Then came the lies. The frantic, stumbling explanations. It wasn't what it looked like. It was research. It was complicated. It was therapy, trying to process his feelings about his midlife crisis. He tried to snatch the laptop, but I pulled it back. His voice rose, becoming defensive, then aggressive. How did I find this? Was I spying on him? He flipped the script, turning the accusation back on me. It was textbook gaslighting. He wanted me to doubt my sanity, my judgment, the undeniable evidence right in front of his face. The conversation devolved into a sickening loop of his denials and my quiet, steady presentation of facts. The blog entries, the messages, the travel bookings. I laid it all out, not with anger, but with a chilling detachment. He saw that the usual tricks weren't working. The tears, the feigned hurt, the accusations of me being controlling, none of it landed. His demeanor shifted again, from denial to pleading. He begged, promised it was a mistake, that he loved me, that he would end it. He cried real tears this time, or tears that looked real enough. Tears of a man caught, facing consequences, not tears of remorse for the betrayal itself.
It was still about him.
But the deepest wound wasn't just the affair. It was the specific cruelty of using the video. I kept coming back to that. Why the video? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Why that? He hesitated. And in that hesitation, I saw a flicker of something that wasn't regret. Something colder. He said it was about showing her the contrast, showing her what he was escaping, showing her how trapped he felt. He saw our wedding day, our vows, our shared joy, not as a bond, but as a prison. He used the video to paint himself as the victim, the brave soul breaking free, to gain her sympathy, her admiration. That was the midpoint shift. Hearing him articulate it like that, seeing the complete lack of empathy, the utter self-absorption, the cold calculation behind the desecration of our memories. The last vestiges of hope, of believing this was a fixable mistake, evaporated. My heart, already bruised and bleeding, turned to ice. There was no us to save. There was no we to rebuild. There was just him, a stranger I had married, and me, left to pick up the pieces of a life built on his lies. The pain didn't lessen, but its nature changed. It was no longer the sharp agony of a fresh wound. It was the dull, throbbing ache of chronic illness. It settled deep within my bones, a constant reminder of what had been lost. But alongside the ache, a new feeling grew. A cold, relentless determination. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was someone who had been fundamentally wronged, someone whose sacred memories had been defiled and weaponized. And I wouldn't stand for it. He continued to live in the house, a tense, unbearable coexistence. He tried to act normal, sometimes overly solicitous, sometimes distant and resentful that I knew. He clearly thought his tearful performance and promises had bought him time, maybe even a path to forgiveness. He didn't understand that the line had been crossed, burned to ash when he uploaded that video. He still had access to the blog, to the video. He hadn't taken it down. He still hadn't confessed to her that he was married. He was still living the lie, just now under my watchful, silent gaze. I spent my days in a state of quiet vigilance. The house felt like a battlefield, albeit one fought with silent glances and loaded pauses. Every time his phone pinged, my muscles tensed. Every time he left the house, I wondered where he was going, who he was seeing. The lack of trust was absolute, a gaping chasm between us. The deepened crisis arrived not with a bang, but with a slow, suffocating creep. He started subtly isolating me, canceling plans we'd made with mutual friends, claiming I was stressed and needed rest, controlling finances more tightly, questioning my spending, despite the fact I also contributed significantly. He even started leaving hints with our families, painting a picture of me as unstable, overly emotional, difficult. He was preparing the ground, laying the narrative for when the truth inevitably came out, so he could minimize the damage to himself. He was trying to make me the problem, the crazy wife who couldn't handle his personal growth. The other woman, empowered by his portrayal of himself as a free agent, started becoming bolder, liking his public posts, leaving coy comments, inserting herself into his online presence. It felt like they were building a new life, openly, on the ashes of mine. My attempts to reason with him were futile. He'd either shut down, get angry, or revert to the gaslighting. "You're overreacting. It was just a video. You're obsessed." He couldn't or wouldn't acknowledge the profound violation of trust, the symbolic violence of his act. He saw it as a tool, a means to an end. It felt like everything was slipping away. Not just my marriage, which felt already gone, but my sense of self, my history, my future. He was controlling the narrative, painting himself as a hero, and I was the obstacle, the villain in his new story. The original wedding video remained online, a constant, humiliating testament to his deceit and my perceived powerlessness. People we knew, people who might see it, would only get his version, his curated lie. The thought was unbearable. Then one sleepless night, staring at the ceiling, it hit me. He used the video because it was powerful, because it represented something significant. He twisted its meaning, turned it into a lie. But its power still existed. It was a canvas, however defiled. He hadn't changed the password to the cloud storage where the original, high-resolution video file, along with all the raw footage, was stored. He hadn't anticipated I would be thinking beyond just confronting him. He assumed my reaction would be emotional, destructive, but ultimately containable. He thought he was in control of the digital domain, the narrative he was carefully constructing. That was the turning point. I wouldn't just leave. I wouldn't just divorce him and let him keep his twisted narrative, his new life built on my ruin. I would take back control. I would fight fire with fire, video with video. He had used our past to create his future. I would use that same past and his present to rewrite his future. The plan was simple in concept, terrifying in execution. I needed access. I already had it, but he didn't know I knew. I needed time. He was planning another trip to see her, another conference. Perfect. I needed a new narrative. Not just deleting the video, which he could probably re-upload elsewhere. Not just exposing him with angry words, which he could dismiss as a scorned wife's rantings. It needed to be undeniable. It needed to be public. And it needed to use his own weapon against him. I spent the days leading up to his trip in a focused, almost meditative state. The emotional storm had passed, leaving behind a chilling calm. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the hot, volatile way. It was a cold, steady burn. I researched digital tools, editing software I'd only dabbled with before. I reviewed the raw wedding footage, frame by frame. It was agonizing, watching those moments of pure, unadulterated happiness, knowing what was coming. But I looked for specific things, moments that, in retrospect, held a different meaning. Moments he seemed distracted, moments where a subtle look crossed his face, moments that could be juxtaposed with his current actions. I also gathered more digital breadcrumbs. Screenshots of his blog comments, messages I'd found, booking confirmations. The trail of deception was long and detailed. He hadn't been careful because he hadn't expected me to be cold and methodical. He expected tears, shouting, accusations. He expected emotional chaos, which he knew how to navigate and dismiss. He didn't expect strategy. The night before he left, he kissed me goodbye, completely oblivious. He was already mentally on his trip, already with her. His detachment was palpable. It only strengthened my resolve. As soon as the front door clicked shut behind him the next morning, the air in the house shifted. It was no longer heavy with tension. It hummed with purpose. The silence was no longer suffocating. It was a canvas for my thoughts. I went straight to my computer. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. This was it. Step 1. Secure the weapon. I accessed the cloud storage. The wedding video, the raw footage, all there. I downloaded everything, backed it up, copied it to multiple drives, made sure I had my copies safe. Then, with a deep breath, I changed the password to the cloud account. A long, complex string of characters. He wouldn't be getting in. Not ever again. He wouldn't be able to delete my version, and he wouldn't be able to access his original file to re-upload it elsewhere easily. The original source, the pure version of our memory, was now exclusively mine. Step 2. Craft the counter-narrative. I opened the editing software. The raw footage filled the screen, hours of smiles, laughter, dancing. It felt surreal, manipulating these sacred memories. I found the voiceover file from his blog. His smooth, deceptive voice. I started editing. I took clips from his blog, his comments, screenshots of his interactions with her, and wove them together with the wedding footage. I used the moments I had identified, the subtle looks, the moments of distraction, and overlaid them with his recent words, his lies. The climax wasn't a single explosive event, but a carefully executed plan, a digital ambush. I worked relentlessly, the hours blurring. I layered his voiceover onto the wedding footage, letting his words about escaping a cage play over shots of me smiling, holding his hand, looking at him with love. Then, I cut to screenshots of his messages to her, her comments on his blog, the travel confirmations. I included clips of him in the raw footage that seemed, in retrospect, less than genuine. I used the wedding music, the familiar, romantic score, and let it play under the increasingly damning evidence, creating a sickening dissonance. The ending was the key. I didn't just expose him. I reframed the entire narrative. I found a moment in the raw footage, right after we said our vows, where I looked directly at the camera, for just a second, a pure, happy, hopeful look. I froze that frame. Then I added text. Not angry text, but simple, factual text. His name. Her name. Dates. Screenshots. The link to his blog, still live, with his original video and comments. And then I added my own voiceover. Just a few sentences. Quiet. Measured. Not emotional. This is the story of our wedding day. A day of promises. Promises that meant everything to one person and nothing to another. This video was used to create a new story, a new life built on deception. This is the truth. I exported the video. High quality. Called it something innocuous, something related to our wedding date, but not obvious. Then I uploaded it. Not to his blog, but to a different platform. Publicly. Widely shareable. I didn't link it from my social media immediately. I sent the link to the mutual friend who had first alerted me. I sent it to a few other trusted friends, people who knew both of us. I didn't ask them to share it. I just said, I want you to see this. This is what he did. Then I waited. He was still away. I tracked his location via our shared family app. He was in the other city. The new video was live. The cloud account locked. The clock was ticking. The explosion didn't come from him directly. It came through a frantic call from his sister. She was crying, incoherent. What did you do? What did you post? He's seen it. Then his mother called. Furious. How dare you? How could you do this to him? His phone calls started flooding in. Missed calls. Then voicemails. First confused and angry. What is this? Why can't I access the video? He didn't even know I had locked him out yet. Then, frantic. He had clearly seen the new video. His voice was thick with disbelief, then rage. You bitch. What have you done? Take it down. Take it down. He must have tried to access the cloud account, tried to delete his blog post, tried to control the situation, and found himself locked out, unable to stop the truth from spreading. The pinnacle moment was not a shouting match, but a FaceTime call he initiated, wild with panic. His face filled the screen, contorted in disbelief and fury. He was clearly not alone. I could see a hotel room behind him, hear a muffled voice, presumably hers, in the background. He wasn't shouting this time. His voice was a low, dangerous growl, laced with pure, unadulterated shock. The video, he choked out, his eyes wide. You changed it. You locked me out. I said nothing. Just watched him. It's everywhere, he whispered, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. His eyes darted away, then back to me, not with anger now, but with dawning horror. He saw the comments starting to flood in below my video. He saw the shares. He saw his carefully constructed narrative crumbling in real time. He had used the most powerful symbol of our union, our wedding video, to sell a lie and build a new life, thinking he was in complete control. He thought my reaction would be predictable, emotional, manageable. He thought I would break down, providing more fuel for his crazy ex narrative. But I hadn't. I had taken his weapon, his narrative, and twisted it back on him. I hadn't just exposed his infidelity, I had exposed his method. I had shown the world the calculated cruelty of using sacred memories to fuel a lie. His collapse wasn't just finding out I knew, or even seeing my video. It was the utter, blindsiding shock that I had not only seen through him, but had also used his own game against him, publicly, irrevocably, and with devastating effectiveness. He saw his future evaporate in that moment, his carefully crafted escape route turning into a public pillory. He physically recoiled, clutching his chest, his face turning an alarming shade of gray. The phone clattered from his hand. The screen went black. In the immediate aftermath, silence descended. Not peace, not yet, but the absence of the frantic chaos. His phone calls stopped. Presumably, he had more immediate problems to deal with, like whatever fallout was happening with her, with his family, with whoever else had seen the video. The messages started coming in. From friends, from his family, those who weren't yelling, from people I hadn't spoken to in years who had somehow seen the video. Messages of shock, of support, of disbelief at his audacity. The narrative was no longer his, it was mine, backed by undeniable evidence presented in a way that was devastating precisely because it wasn't overtly emotional, just factual juxtaposition. The divorce was surprisingly clean legally. With the public exposure and the undeniable evidence, he had no leverage, no ground to fight on. His attempts to portray me as unstable fell flat against the calm, factual presentation of the video. He lost far more than just the marriage. His reputation, both personal and professional, was severely damaged. The new life he was building collapsed before it had even truly begun. There was no grand victory celebration, no moment of triumphant gloating, just a quiet, profound exhaustion. The pain of the betrayal remained, a scar that would likely never fully fade. The memories of that wedding day were forever tinged with the knowledge of how he had defiled them, but they were also, now, colored by the knowledge that I had reclaimed them, used them to expose the truth. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about taking back control, about refusing to let him define my past or dictate my future. He had used our most beautiful shared memory as a weapon. I had simply shown the truth embedded within that memory, illuminated by his own actions. The house felt different, lighter somehow. The objects within it no longer felt like mocking relics of a lie. They were just things. Things I could choose to keep or discard as I rebuilt. I learned that trust, once broken in such a fundamental way, cannot be repaired. I learned that the stories we tell ourselves and others about our lives are incredibly powerful, but they can be challenged and rewritten. And I learned that sometimes the coldest, most strategic response is the most powerful. He thought he was blindsiding me with his betrayal and his narrative control. He never imagined I would turn the camera back on him, edit the footage, and present a new, devastating ending. It's a strange feeling, victory mixed with sorrow. The freedom is immense, but it came at a terrible cost. I walk lighter now, without the weight of his lies, but also alone, without the future I had planned. It's a quiet kind of strength, a knowledge that I faced the worst kind of betrayal, the desecration of sacred memories, and I didn't just survive. I reclaimed my truth. If this story resonated with you in any way, if you've ever felt betrayed, lied to, or had your memories twisted against you, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It helps bring more of these stories to life. Thank you for being here.